We are joined right now by Robert Costa from the National Review. He's a Washington editor for that organization, and we thought we'd talk to him, of course, about the shutdown and where it stands right now. Robert, thanks for joining us here. We greatly appreciate you getting up early to be with us.
Hey, good morning. Great to be here.
All right, so look, yesterday both sides were still lobbing verbal grenades at one another. John Boehner at one point said that a clean CR, a continuing resolution, cannot pass, and the president said, I double dog, triple dog, dare you to lay it out there and see how it goes. He doesn't seem to be inclined to do that. Where are we in this thing?
We're continuing to have a stalemate, and what we're seeing right now is John Boehner is reluctant to come out with any kind of compromise plan or propose a debt limit plan, and the president continues to dig in his heels and demand a clean CR. And so it's really a question who's going to blink first.
And who do you think? I mean, do you get any sense about how that's going to be resolved?
I think this is going to be resolved next week. I think the political theater continues this week. But I think next week, especially when the markets start to churn, you're going to see some kind of behind-the-scenes talks about a mini bargain of sorts, something that would extend the debt limit and fund the government at the same time, and then simultaneously have some kind of concession from the White House and maybe a concession from Republicans as well.
It does seem that the shutdown and the debt ceiling thing are sort of coming together, merging together, doesn't it?
It is. It's really because of the calendar. The shutdown itself, though, I think could actually last longer than the debt limit. I think congressional leaders would like to have a combination deal. But should this impasse continue into next week, what I'm hearing from my leadership sources is that what's first and foremost on their mind is getting an extension of the debt limit. And so what you saw from the White House yesterday was pretty interesting. The White House, after saying for weeks that it won't negotiate on anything, it did come out and say that it would support a short-term extension of the debt limit. So what we're looking at maybe is a continued shutdown for maybe weeks on end, but they may pass a short-term extension of the debt limit to avoid default and just keep the negotiations going.
Robert Costa, let's set aside your sources within leadership for a minute, and let's talk about that contingent of conservative grassroots Tea Party types of congressmen. You write at National Review about how Speaker Boehner might be trying to work out a final plan on the debt limit and negotiate something a little bit bigger and more comprehensive. And I've got to think that the grassroots conservative Tea Party Republicans are pretty wary of that idea, considering John Boehner has not been able to really satisfy them when he negotiates with the president in the past.
Right. I had a small post on NRO yesterday about this. And what's interesting is that the details of Boehner's proposal for the debt limit are unknown right now. No one really even knows what he's doing. There are rumors and buzz about what he'd like to include. But even before those details are known, because of the trust gap between Boehner and his right flank, there's already heavy skepticism about any kind of bargain. I think you're right, Larry. I think conservatives are going to maybe not necessarily revolt, but they're going to likely disagree with Boehner's choices, whatever he chooses to do on the debt limit. So the speaker is really in a limited position. His hands are tied because most of his Congress doesn't even want him to deal unless it's a full defund or delay of Obamacare.
Robert Costa, can you shed some light on something for a minute? You often hear the president now and Harry Reid saying John Boehner doesn't want to bring a clean CR to the floor for a vote because he doesn't have the votes. The fact is he would lose that vote. If that's the case, if the Democrats, if Nancy Pelosi has enough Republicans on her side to get a clean CR pushed through, isn't there a procedural rule that allows Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats to call that question if she's got the numbers?
A discharge petition, right.
That's right. But a lot of Republicans will not sign the discharge petition. So you're seeing there is a legislative procedure with this discharge petition where you could bring a clean CR to the floor if Democrats had the votes to do it. But they need some Republicans to sign on to that because, of course, Democrats are the minority. And until Boehner really gives a sign-off on a discharge petition, even the Charlie Dents of the world, the moderates who want to have a clean CR, they're not backing it.
So he doesn't have the vote.
Yeah, well, it's possible these Republicans are saying to the Democrats, oh, I don't like this. I would vote for a clean CR, but I won't sign that discharge. But they're having it both ways is what they're doing.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, you need, 218 votes to force that, which would require, quite a few Republicans to sign on.
And it's just not going to happen because as much as some people want a clean CR within the House GOP, the minute you start working with Nancy Pelosi to sign a discharge petition, you're an outsider within your own conference.
Yeah, you're
That's
primaried.
a perilous position.
All right. So, in the grand scheme of things, it looks like we're just in for another few days of this stuff. I mean, the 17th is sort of this drop dead thing that everybody talks about. Oh, that's when the debt ceiling. That's when we got to deal with the debt ceiling. But the fact of the matter is, they don't really have to deal with the debt ceiling on the 17th because, I mean, you can make a decision about what money you're going to spend. I mean, it's still going to be money coming into the government. People are still going to be paying their taxes. So you got the inflow of money. It's not like the complete government, completely runs out of all money on the 17th of October.
That's technically true, and a lot of Republicans are making that argument. The question is, though, as you approach the October 16th midnight deadline, how reactive and volatile do the markets become, and what are the political consequences of that? And I think that, more than the technicalities of whether the government actually defaults immediately, is really what's going to drive the discussion at the end.
But default is not automatic on the 17th, right?
That most people agree with that, because the government has enough money to keep paying its debts, and I think that's right. But the question is the political burn from taking it that far enough to drive a deal, or maybe it's not?
Ultimately,
that's why the White House's short-term extension idea, I think, there's nothing Washington likes better than kicking the can down the road. So if there's no deal by, let's say, Tuesday of next week, look for a short-term debt limit extension, but look for a continued shutdown.
Ultimately, Robert Costa, this is a political issue, and based on the latest CNN poll, Republicans are getting blamed by about 10% higher than Democrats, but that's a far cry from the 2-to-1 blame they got under the 95 shutdown. And also, independents blame both Republicans and Democrats evenly. So the Republicans you talk to in the House, would they take those numbers?
They're feeling pretty good right now. That's one thing why I think this is going to continue. House conservatives and a lot of House Republicans are feeling, hey, some people are negative about the shutdown in my district, but it's not that bad, and they think they can survive this. But they think they can survive the shutdown, but not necessarily default. So I think that's why this goes into next week.
Robert Costa, National Review's Washington editor and a contributor over at CNBC. Robert, thank you so much for joining us. Greatly appreciated.